Thank you so much, Sandeep. Hi, everybody. My name is Hemant, and I'm an alcoholic. And I haven't had the first drink with the grace of God and the help I've received from Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome to our Back to Basics workshop conducted by Philip. Thank you, Philip, for your service and your brilliance in bringing us these steps, the step workshop. And today we are going to discuss the fourth step, I suppose. I think we're going to discuss the fourth step. And now let me reiterate right here that until you have done your first, second, and third step, unless you've admitted complete defeat, your natural instincts are always going to act up. Your natural instincts are what keeps a person drinking far beyond the Rubicon, far beyond once he knows that he's an alcoholic. When I knew I was an alcoholic, I still drank because my natural instincts stopped me from admitting complete defeat. Though alcohol had become a rapacious predator, as they say in the first step, I really didn't want to stop drinking. And I'm going to read a little something from page 50 of the 12 and 12. Oh, and before I read this page 50 of the 12 and 12, if you are doing your if you're seriously doing your resentments and your fears and your other inventory, well, page 50, 51, and 52 of the 12 and 12 tells you exactly how to go about it. They even give you suggestions. I mean, it's a beautifully written essay on the fourth step. So please, if you are having a problem in thinking about how to do the inventory, well, there are questions. All you have to do is ask those questions of your own self, and you'll find the inventory process much clearer. And it says on page 50, by now the newcomer has probably arrived at the following conclusions: that his character defects, representing instincts gone astray, have been the primary cause of his drinking and his failures at life. That unless he is now willing to work hard at at the elimination of the worst of these defects, both sobriety and peace of mind will still elude him. That all the faulty foundation of his life will have to be torn down and built anew on bedrock. Willing to now willing to commence the search for his own defects, he will ask, just how do I go ahead and do this? And this is how do I take an inventory? And then they go ahead and tell you how to take the inventory. But basically, what they're saying is a design. This Alcoholics Anonymous, these steps are a design for living really works here. I started when I came to AA and I started working these. My life changed. I had a psychic change, and my entire life, my entire thought process changed. Not only could I keep away from alcohol, but I'm learning how to live a much happier life. I'm much more peaceful. I discovered a new way of living, and it's a beautiful way of living. Believe me, guys, try it out. The first, second, and third steps are the foundation steps in which uh, unless we do them thoroughly, unless we do them without reservation, unless we agree totally that we need these steps of recovery, we can't do the fourth step, because the fourth step is going to ask you to do things unimaginable to a drinking alcoholic. It's just not possible for you to even think of doing the first step unless you have admitted complete defeat, unless you have asked for help from a power greater than yourselves, and until you have really turned your life and your will over to the care of this higher power which you have found in the second step. Life has been unmanageable, but today life is manageable, friends. Today I'm still very powerless over everything in life, but today at least I have a little peace of mind, and that's what this whole thing is about. Philip, please come in, and thank you once again for your help, for your service in conducting this study for us. God bless you, Philip. Thank you so much. Please come in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you are. You're in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you are an alcoholic like me, it's the best and the safest place to be in. Thank you for turning up. And let me first of all commend or let me take note of the newcomers here who are in their first year of sobriety. How many of them do we have? How many of them have, could you just put your hands up, please? so that we could recognize you, we could felicitate you on this. We have Tejas, we have Sandeep, Abhinav, Meet, Suresh, Nirasha, Shabir, Joe Kenneth, Randall. Anyone else would like to say? You know, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of guts, first of all, to admit that I'm an alcoholic. And secondly, it also takes a lot of guts to overcome, to surmount your fears and start looking at yourself. My name is Philip. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I thank each and every one of you newcomers here. And I would tell you, you know, all that I could advise you is, you know, take your life seriously. This is a second chance. And without a program or without a spiritual or ritual, spirit and ritual way of life, I couldn't do it. Why? Because being the alcoholic that I am, if you read the doctor's opinion, it says very clearly, I'm maladjusted to life. I have a maladjusted personality. I don't believe in reality. I'm always taking flight from reality. I'm an escape artist. I'm a con artist. I'm in denial most of the time. I believe in my own lies. Self-deception is one of my characteristics or traits. Today we'll be talking about that too. And today I would be talking to you about why we need to do step 4, you know, and tomorrow we would be conducting the step 4 exercise for those of you who would be wanting to do it. Now, you know, there's a lot of unwanted hubbub about this step 4, but let me tell you, you know, I also got into this entanglement of people talking about step 4 and lost my way. And I had to pay the price for it. But step 4 is nothing but, you know, if you walk the path you're doing of step 1, 2, and 3, by the time you finish step 3, you and the God of your understanding together can surmount it, because you've overcome your fear of, you know, failure or a fear of wanting to know yourself. So, you know, I'll first go through the first 3 steps, the glossary of the first 3 steps, before I move on to telling why we need step 4. And this is for the benefit of the newcomers and for those who have just logged in, you know, for those who are coming for the first time. I hope you all have this small booklet, which you could have made out of the PDF file we sent you, you know, so it would be easier for you to make notes on the left-hand side of the book, have a pencil and eraser. You know, for the first time, when I did this for the first time in my life, I was doing something about myself, you know. So it is a sort of a thing that lifted me up. My self-respect, my self-esteem, I did something esteemable for myself, came up. I felt good about myself. You know, that's something that I missed all my life, feeling good about myself. And why wouldn't I feel good about myself? Why was I always in self-condemnation? Why was I always critical about myself? I was my own worst critic, you know. I couldn't get over the feeling of uselessness, helplessness, you know, to a feeling of, you know, being up to nothing where others could do something. I would never amount to anything, you know, sort of thing. And that's what is very described in the doctor's opinion. So I'm sick in the head. You know, my problem centers in my head. And self-centeredness is one of the characteristics of this sickness of alcoholism. Now, I would like to reinstate and say, you know, you must have heard it many times, but I would like to say, who is an alcoholic? To me, as I term it, any individual who cannot guarantee his or her behavior after they picked up that first drink is essentially an alcoholic. Now, if you ask me a question where an alcoholic is born or, you know, where it is, I really do not know. But I know one thing, that I was a disaster waiting to happen. And, you know, my life, when I look back today and why I do a 4th step, it's because I want to know why I became the person I finally happened to become, you know, before I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. So long before I touched a drink, I saw the unmanageability of my life. You know, I lacked coping skills. I never fit in. I could never move around with people, you know, of my kind. You know, I always thought lesser of myself. You know? So when I say I don't fit in, that's what they say in the big book of a maladjusted personality and maladjusted to life. So when I'm maladjusted to life, that means I'm abnormal. I'm not normal like other people. So the book again states that we are bodily and mentally different from other people. Now, when you take that into consideration, that means I lack perspective. I lack coping skills. So if I look back into my early life, I was a scared human being. My fears overcame me most of the time. Even as a small kid, I remember I used to wet my bed till I was about 12 or 14 years old. Today, I don't have any poems talking about it, but then it was very embarrassing, because I couldn't discuss these things with people. The fear of getting up for the next day, would make me do those things, So having lived a life under continuous tension, stress, anxiety at that age is not good for anyone. So the liberation point for me was when I came into contact with alcohol. When I drank alcohol, I felt complete, though that stress, that fear, whatever was incapacitating me to be the person I was, I felt good, and I became the person I wanted to be. But the thing with an alcoholic like me, I was a disaster waiting to happen from the onset of getting into, that was lighting the fuse. When I took alcohol for the first time, that was lighting the fuse. And I took off on a different tangent. Believe me, alcohol was the medication to my problem. Actually, if I've been told by my sponsor also, in case alcohol was not available, you would have either fallen on to some other drug, or you would have gone insane and would have been locked up in some asylum because you lack coping skills. So now my problem was I lack coping skills. So again, it comes stopping drinking was never my problem because I had stopped drinking so many times, but I couldn't say stop. So if I can't say stop, the reason being I didn't know how to deal with life and to deal with my head, which always kept telling me that I'm a piece of shit. So being on a perspective on a plane like that is not a very comfortable state, but then you get used to it, and that becomes the only type of life that you know. So I became so addicted to the chemical alcohol that my total life revolved around it. It's like it could be like a honeybee on the honeycomb. I would be there wherever I went. I came back there. I just had to have it, and I thought there was more life beyond that. So from the onset of my drinking, to the time when I totally had to surrender and say that, I can't do this anymore. But then I didn't know how to do without it also. So caught between the devil and the deep sea, the book says we were at the jumping off places, I like that ease and comfort that came with a drink, I felt how I could envision how I changed my personality the moment I took a drink. Everything about me changed. My thinking, my body language, how I felt, my inner body constitution, everything changed. So that was the exact medication that I needed, but to lift me up, But the thing is, I couldn't stop at that. One drink was too many and 100 were too little for me. I was off to the races the moment I took a drink, and every day I promised I wouldn't drink. And the next day, because I didn't want to face, I was not in control of my emotions. I was not, I didn't feel right in any association. The book says that we were having trouble with our personal relations. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy we had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of any real help to other people. That's including me. So that was the sort of feeling that I carried: irritable, restless, and discontentment, And to get myself out of that feeling, I took a drink, So the drink, they say, I took a drink took a drink, and a drink took me. So the third stage was, the drink was having me. I couldn't do without it. So now, first I had a problem of unmanageability. Now with alcohol, my life was a total chaos. It was totally chaotic. I didn't know what my health was going downhill. My trust with myself and with other people were going. My self-respect was gone. My self-esteem, self-worth was gone. Loss of, I didn't have any dignity left in me. That's a sort of, I would beg, steal, or borrow for a drink. That's how much I had fallen. So, no human being should fall to that extent. When God has given you a life, God has given you the capacity to earn and look after yourself. But then if you're incapacitated by your addiction or the chemical alcohol, which was my addiction, that means there was something drastically wrong. So what was there was, I lacked power. I like that self-will was not working anymore, So self-will run right, instincts on rampage, the book says, I was like a runaway train without anyone to control it. So here I hit one or two buffers and I was told, Philip, either you stop drinking or you become totally insane or you're going to die. I accepted that fact. Okay, so in the end of it all, I was drinking to die. So here I realized that alcohol was the power that was getting me on. But now I came into Alcoholics Anonymous at age 32, and they said you have to find a power source that is going to sustain you. Where am I going to find this power source that is going to? Alcohol gave me all the power I needed. The moment I fell down, I took a drink. That was I was off to the races. But here, where was I to find a power? So lack of power being my dilemma, which had to substitute or substantiate my life for me, had to be a spiritual one. So the only solution to this alcohol problem was a spiritual solution. And, it didn't appeal to me to be on a spiritual solution because I thought I mistook spirituality for religion, which I abhorred. And when they talked about God, this God of my understanding hadn't done nothing for me. And they were talking about God, which pissed me off again. If that God could have saved me, I wouldn't be here. But then again, like the people says, who am I to say that there is no God? If all these people seated in the classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous would sober up and say that, it is a God of their understanding and the people in Alcoholics Anonymous that has given them a new life, who am I to not to say that? So slowly, I gelled into that way of thinking and I found a power. So, finding a power source in Alcoholics Anonymous was the others who stopped drinking. And they said, you are the victim of a hapless, insane obsession that overpowers you. And alcohol is but a symptom of your deeper inner lying conflicts. It's an outward manifestation of an inward disorder. Now, I understood that. Now, when I had stayed stopped for some time in Alcoholics Anonymous, I started breathing properly. I started living properly. I started eating properly. I started, looking after myself, which I had neglected. Everything about me changed, but the fear had not left me. So I had to be restored to sanity over the drink, and I was to be restored to sanity over the fear of alcohol. So first was the freedom from the bondage of alcohol. To be free from the bondage of alcohol, I had to understand what alcohol was and what alcohol had done to me. I had to understand that I was allergic to alcohol. The moment I took a drink, I couldn't stop drinking. Why? Because my body reacted to alcohol in a different way from normal people. Normal people could take a drink or two and could do away with it. But for an alcoholic like me, I couldn't do it. So, in all this, what happens is this maladjustment is, you come into a lot of trouble. You build up a lot of character defects, on the way. You lie, you cheat, you do all those things that, normal people wouldn't do. And I fell victim to that. I had to do it, to get a drink. I have to tell a lie. To get money, I had to tell a lie. I had to rob sometimes. I had been to dairy places where I should not be seen. All these things were really putting me off. And here in Alcoholics Anonymous, they again told me one thing. They said, you're not responsible for your sickness, but you're responsible for your recovery. So yes, I started working on my recovery. And that is where my step two, first step, I surrendered to the power of alcohol. And I say, I can't do this anymore. I accepted the fact that, alcohol is going to drag me down the drain. And the first step is of total acceptance. That's the only step that I can do in total acceptance. But first I have to stop drinking. So there, and when I stopped drinking and I started looking at the second part, my life is unmanageable, I realized it was my unmanageability that made me drink, not the alcohol in itself. It's the unmanageability of my life, my lack of coping skills, my lack of perspectives that made me drink. So I had to find a source that could, let me loose from it. And that's where I found that this power of greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And it restored me to sanity over a drink. That is the understanding that my unmanageability had to be addressed. So third is, hand over my will and my life over to the care of God. What was my will, my life? Last session, I told you, for those who are new here, I'll tell you, my will is what I want to be, what I want where I'll go, what I will do, with whom will I meet, and what will I do in life. This is my will. And what is my life? My life is what I have left behind me, the wreckage of my past, all those broken relationships, those dreams, and that's my life, and living with my, this, unconfounded fear of my will and the past that is always catching up on me. It's a very difficult place. So I had to put it down. And this is where I hand over that will, the past and the present and the future, to the care of God as I understood him, so that eased me of that burden of self, self-centeredness that we call it. On page 62, it says, or talks about selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think of the root. So when it goes to that, and the selfishness arrives out of myself, and an alcoholic like me is an extreme example of self-will run right. And I had to give up with it, and I couldn't do it on my own, but I needed God's help. And with this power, I could do it, And when I sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things started following, I had a new employer. God became my new employer. He was all powerful. He provided all that I needed if I kept close to him. All these things started happening in me, as we felt new power flow into and enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully. As we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. We were reborn. I had to die to my past, and I had to be reborn again. I had to be reborn into a new way of life, into a new way of thinking. I had to change. The choice was either I change or I die. So I chose change. And in that change, I accepted that this God of my understanding. Now, first of all, I need to understand this God of my understanding, which I thought was a punishing God, was not a punishing God. If God meant to punish me, and if he was a punishing God, then I wouldn't be alive today. I wouldn't be talking to you today, He loved me, and because he loved me, he kept me aside. He took care of me through all those trials and tribulations that I went through. I didn't go through it out of my choice, but my sickness of alcoholism dictated that I went through whatever I went through. Those traumas that I go through, it is not funny, to come out of alcoholism and see the world in a different perspective, because you have, ruined so many lives. You have ruined so many opportunities. Loved ones were lost, relationships were broken, you were at loss with yourself and the world. All these things, when I wake up, that is what drove me back to a drink. But here they say, it is the same God that you think that has punished you, is the God that has saved you. For an example, they said, look at the millions of people out there drinking. How many of them die of alcohol causes? Some die of, heart attack. The underlying cause is alcohol. Some die of liver failure, kidney failure, pancreas. The underlying cause is alcohol. You have, some drive over somebody else and kill others. The underlying cause again is under the influence of alcohol. So look at all those things. And when you look at yourself, look at your scorecard and see where you stand, I was in a position, where I could say, yes, it is something beyond me that has kept me alive. Because, my last stages of my drinking, I was drinking to die. So here I am, I started understanding this God that I was forsaking, and the God that I was condoning, And Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a choice to, to choose a God of my own understanding, to choose, and they don't even call it God, they call it a higher power. These appeal to me because I didn't like authority. I didn't like being told, the fear of authority and the fear of, believing in someone or something I can't see, which is not tangible. These are things that, I didn't like, but slowly, because my life was more important than anything else, I, gelled into that. And there, the power of God was manifested. The power of this power greater than myself manifested itself onto myself, and the fear of alcohol was finally removed from me. So now in doing this, what really has happened is, my past had to be dealt with. If I didn't deal with my past, I was sure that I was going to drink again. What was my past? My past was that of an alcoholic. And untreated alcoholism is total negativity. And this negativity had to be done away with, and that couldn't be done away with unless I understood what it was all about, because it had to deal with me, the way I felt, my character, all these things, the deformities that had been caused because of my drinking, and my immature nature of thinking. So here, after I finished step 3, they said, let's move on to step 4. And for that, we have the step 3 prayer, which says, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I might help in thy power, thy love and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So here I was, I handed over my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood God, And here I'm moving on to step 4. Now, what are the, fallouts of, my drinking? And that is, you have character defects, you have pride, you have ego, you have lust, you have anger, you have greed, you have gluttony, you have envy, sloth, dishonesty. All these things are there. And there, if you open your booklet on page 17, there is a checklist of flaws and assets. Now, if I look at my flaws and assets, I will see, what I thought was bad, the opposite of that, And there, this program is all about character building. And if I to build my character, I have to know who I am. Because all the falsifications and all the false values that I had about myself had to fall off. So if I had to be the person God intended me to be, I had to first fall into line to find out what God's will was for me in my life. And to understand, the first thing that, I'm alive is when my will aligned with my God's will for me to stay sober, and I surrendered in my weakness, I became willing to ask God for help. And what was God's help? God was there to tell me, I help you sober up, but I wanted to sober up my own way. So when my will conform with God's will, there I came into sobriety. Now there are the other areas of my life, these character defects, which I have, lying, cheating, stealing. Some may have womanizing, some may have gambling to it. Some may, these are small knick-knack problems which we think it is, but actually they form these character defects. They are the ones that make me the person I became, So I had to unbecome, and that is the hard part of it. So in step 4, when I know more about myself, I start becoming the person God has willed me to be. So in step 4, when I go, I look at my character defects and I look at my resentments. Most people resent someone or something. So most people are angry about things. I get upset about things. I am immature in my thinking. I get hurt very easily. I'm talking about what made me the person I was. I was misunderstood, grossly misunderstood by people. I was mistreated by people. So I thought, So with these sort of things in my head, and when I don't fit in, or I don't fit the grade, what do I do about myself? Alcohol was a substance that made me go, and now I stop alcohol, and you guys tell me that you look at these areas of your life if you want to change and become a better human being, or to learn coping skills. Now, change was something that I feared. I feared change. It's like when I stopped drinking, I could not comprehend a life without alcohol. That was the biggest problem I had. What would my life amount to without alcohol? Could I live another day? The moment, I got into withdrawals, what did I do? The first thing I did was run to alcohol. The moment I was on emotional pain, what did I do? I ran to alcohol. If I had a stomach ache, what did I do? I ran to alcohol. So my total dependence was on alcohol. My life revolved around alcohol. And now I had to, forgo that dependency and become self-dependent or God-reliant, See, fear is always a composition of incidents or values which does not really come to anything. It's only an illusion. Fear is only an illusion. The problem is I live that fear in my head and make it real. Now, why does this fear dominate? Because self-reliance. I thought, I know how to manage my life. The book says because is it not because self-reliance said fail me? So when I understand that fear is a normal phenomenon with everyone, people live in fear. That I was born with basically two fears, I'm told. One is the fear of noise and the fear of falling. The rest of the fears are acquired fears. Now, I have normal reflexive fears, like, someone tries to push me over the edge, I will go back. That's a fear. That the fear of death is there, or the fear of self-preservation, or what you call the basic instinct of survival, which gives me a fear to survive. Supposing I'm drowning in the water, what do? I beat my hands and legs. It is, the fear of dying has made me asked me to beat my hands and legs. It comes automatically. So these are sort of things that are there. I had to understand my fears. So if I can master my fears, then, I can move on to the next step of finding out why did I have those fears in the first place? And that is where it says that maladjustment to life, I'm bodily, mentally different from others. So I understand I was deficient in that area. Now I come to the place where anger comes in. Why am I angry? Angry it's a normal thing for other people. But for me, why do I get overboard with that? Why do I get carried away by my anger? And my anger leads to resentment, and my resentment is such that, when I resent somebody, I want to spike that person to death. I character assassinate that person. So, when I go through these motions, my head is not a nice place to live in. It's a very toxic environment, my head. Now I had to come out of this toxic environment, and without God's help and the program, I couldn't do it. So why was I angry? And anger, there are a couple of reasons. One is frustration. I couldn't get what I wanted. My expectations on myself and on other things are beyond my own comprehension. I expect too much out of myself, and I always fall in my own eyes. Disappointments are based on expectations. So I had to understand that. And when I couldn't get that, I was frustrated. Now, anger leads to resentment. Resentment is when I resent something. The resentment is re-feeling a hurt emotion. I'm an emotional being, and I get hurt over nothing or everything, people, places, and things. I just get, I get upset over people, places, and things. So when I'm looking at the upsets that I have in life, and why I resent certain people or things, it's always because I feel that they're going to take something I don't have, or they're doing something that I don't deserve. So it's just, a sort of a feeling that comes in naturally for a person like me. It's like, supposing I'm talking to a friend of mine, and I normally cite this example of, two good friends going to a bar and sitting and having a drink. So after the drink, I'm totally sloshed. I can't drink anymore. And I tell my friend, give me 100 rupees. I need to, have one more drink. And my friend, seeing my state, he says, Philip, if you want, I'll drive you home, or I'll put you in a cab, but I can't give you 100 rupees. I take it as an insult, and I'm dropped back home, and I go to sleep. The next day morning, when I get up, this hurt feeling comes back to me again, saying, I asked him for 100 rupees. Such a close friend of mine. He shouldn't have said that. He should have given it to me. I re-feel that hurt feeling. I re-feel it. And that is what a resentment is. And it keeps growing, it just magnifies itself. And what happens in the end, that gives me a reason to go and drink. Now, in this resentment, who is the loser? The loser is me. The person who said he won't give me the 100 rupees has gone home. He's, taken a shower and he's gone to sleep. Me, I spent the whole next day morning or the night when I came back home carrying this person in my head, character assassinating him, abusing him. These are the sort of, gymnastics that I indulge in. So, I never had peace. I never had peace of mind. I never, I was restless, irritable, restless, and discontented, as the book says. So how did I get out of it? I had to understand. For me, lack of understanding, lack of perspective, lack of knowledge was my problem. I know self-knowledge had failed me. That was a different thing. Self-knowledge, that was about alcohol. But now I'm talking about knowledge about my own character. And this program, like I said earlier, is all about character building. But if I don't know who I am, or what I am, or what my deficiencies are, how am I going to build on it? So I have to build. Now, supposing I said, resentment was my number one offender. I had to build on that. That negative quality of mine becomes an asset, which was a liability, then becomes, because I start building, I start seeing what a resentment does to me. I see what a fear has done to me. Unconfounded fears, what it does to me. It makes me a total neurotic. The 3 stages. First is fear. Then it is when fear is magnified, it becomes neurosis. And when neurosis is magnified, it becomes psychosis. So my behavior with alcohol was psychotic. My behavior was psychotic. From that, when I understand, I move away. And for the 4th step is all about understanding these things. Most of us come from dysfunctional homes. I come from a dysfunctional home. I never thought it was. My mother was a what you call pill pooper. She self-medicated herself to death. So, when I come from an environment, I think that is the only type of life. I didn't see anything different in others. So I had to understand what were the fears that made me the person I became. So when I start looking at myself squarely, I've stayed sober for a few months. I start seeing life on a better perspective. I start enjoying life, and I start enjoying the creation, like some of our members here, they send clippings of bird songs in the morning, sunrise in the morning. I mean, these are unheard of things for an alcoholic, because I don't wake up before noon. And if I hear something chirping outside, I would want to shoo it away, because it was a disturbance to me. Nothing natural appealed to me. Anything chemical appealed to me. So from chemical dependency, I had to go. So when I understood that, when I started enjoying the pleas and benefits of life, I saw that shift that had happened in me, And because of that, I could enjoy life morning. I could see the sunrise and say, thank God. Most alcoholics would say, when I sobered up, and even today you hear, oh God, it's such a great feeling to wake up in the morning not wanting to have a drink. A great feeling to have a cup of tea. Great feeling to wash your face and brush your teeth. Great feeling to read the newspaper, or great feeling to see your children around. Now, these are all spiritual things which I didn't understand. That is what spirituality is all about. So I had to be made to understand these things, So I didn't know the value of these things. This is why I drank. And because I underestimated myself, or I didn't like myself, I took everything negatively, with whether it was people, places, or things. Wherever I went, I only looked at the negative side of life. It's like the book says, you drive through the forest without seeing the trees, or you see a few bad trees and you don't see the rest of the beauty of the forest. That is the way I lived life. I only saw what I wanted to see, or that I had halters. I was blinded, So here I am now. I'm seeing the natural side of life, I'm trying to imbibe, or I'm trying to inculcate habits and healthy thing that I could live with, So it was a totally different feeling altogether. And, the blame game had to stop. I used to blame everyone. This blame game had to stop. Then I had to understand, why was I blaming others, for all this? I used to ask this question, why me, why me, why me? Until I stopped drinking, and my sponsor asked me one day, how come you're different? Why do you say, why me, why not me? Oh, that put a new perspective on that. So again, I learned another step. Then he told me, be the change you want to see in others. I was so critical about everything and everyone. I was a perfectionist. So when he told me, be the change you want to see in them, don't keep telling them, do this, do that. This is how you go do it yourself. Stop being the perfectionist or the idealist you were, So I had to be made to understand in these small layman terms as to how life and expectancy of life through others, or living a right life, had to be done. So it does not appear, it's not funny, and it's hard work. But the results were such, I started enjoying life. I started fitting into the mainstream of life again. People started coming around me. I started making friends with people. I used to jump out of my skin when I heard the phone ring. Slowly I got over that fear, and I could answer calls. Now what? Who's going to call me? Will he ask me for money? Will he abuse me? These things, the negativity slowly started ebbing away. I started getting into the mainstream of life. I started becoming the person God wanted me to be. Now, here again, I had a lot of self-centeredness that dragged me down. Every habit that I had to break, I had to understand before I broke it, whether it was gambling, womanizing, whether it was in the extremes, what you call it, which I indulged in, I had to understand it. And the moment I understood it, things just started falling into place. Now, for the newcomer, you might think what I'm trying to say is, sort of a hearsay, which is not possible. But yeah, that's how I thought also when I first came to AA. I said, none of these things are going to be practical. But believe me, today I live a life beyond my wildest dreams. I enjoy life, and at my age, I do things which even teenagers or a little about teen wouldn't dare to do. It's not about the daring. I like I'm full of life, and I like doing what I love doing. It's like being with you guys and sharing my experience, strength, and hope with you all. And I get a sense of satisfaction. I lift myself up by doing that. It's not about money. It's not about property. It's not about prestige. It's about me. And that includes you, should feel that I am worth staying sober for. Now that I'm doing step 3, and I have a loving God in my life who's going to help me work my life through and help me in my defects of character and other things that drag me down, that will help me in my negativity of life. What do I have to be scared of? Take that leap of faith. So when you come down next time, we will be talking about the character defects. We'll be talking about resentment. We'll be talking about fear. Now, if fear is something that is blocking you looking at yourself, please do your fear inventory first. And if you need help, all of us are here to help you. Please call us and talk to us of your fears or how you need to do it, because, step 4 is knowing yourself. They talk about it as an inventory. When in any business, you do an inventory to know where you stand. You need to know what your assets, your liabilities are. You need to know your expired goods from your valid goods. You need to throw away what you don't need, and you got to keep what you think you can sell. So in life also, it is certain there are a lot of things I have to discard from life. If I don't discard those things, then again, I may stand a chance of, going and picking up a drink. So I have to see myself that, like I said, I should feel that, I am worth staying sober for. So you need to look at yourself, at those resentments, at those what you call fears that block your life, the harms that you have done to yourself and to others, your sexual relationships or your orientations, anything that makes you guilty, ashamed of yourself. And please don't feel shy to talk about it, because after all, it's your life. And your life means more to you, it should mean more to you than anything else. So with that, I can see Hemant's head popping up. So I'll wind up for the night, because we would need another 15-20 minutes for question and answers. So I know that is why I just wanted to talk to you about step 4, and we ran down step 1, 2. If there is anything missing or any doubts that you might have, please ask. Please go through these. It talks on page 18, 19. The worksheet, character defects. 2 important points. Please go through it, and let us discuss that tomorrow, because soon after that, the tables are there, with the columns of, about your resentment and other things. So please feel free. Thank you very much for having turned up. Thank you for making this possible. Thank the Mangalore group and its members, who are the chair, the hosts, who have made this possible, who send the flyers. And for you lovely members who turned up and, make me feel, I feel worthwhile, I feel lifted up. Thank you so very much for turning up to this workshop. Thank you, Hemant, for chairing the meeting, man. Thank you, Arun, for being the moderator also, Thank you, everyone, for turning up. Thank you so much. Good luck and God bless.
Thank you so much, Philip. Brilliant as usual. I'm getting every time I say brilliant, I really mean it. And I'm really thinking we're doing fantastically. Please, and thank you so much for your service again. Yes, guys, questions and answers on first, second, and third. Why we need to, Philip has already explained why we need to do these steps. but also he also explains the nuts and bolts of the fourth step. So anybody would like to come forward? Sometimes I've been asked that question, that why don't normal people have these problems? Don't they have resentments, and don't they have don't they have fears and things like that? And Bill W has actually put it correctly when he says everybody in life has personality problems, but for an alcoholic, he has an unquenchable thirst for alcohol coupled with his personality problems. And that's why we need to do what we have to do to get out of where we are. That is being a chronic alcoholic in recovery now. Yes, anybody? I have no hands up as yet. Please, anybody would like to? Yes, please, Sandy, go ahead.
My name is Sandeep, member of Alcoholics Anonymous. The book, it says that unless the person can undergo an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of recovery. My doubt is, does the psychic change happen to me once I do the 12 steps, or do I do the 12 steps because I have a psychic change? And the second part to the question is, if after coming into the fellowship, I still haven't undergone that psychic change, then what can I do to speed up that process?
Thank you, Sandeep, for your question. First of all, unless you have a psychic change or a profound personality change or a divine intervention, you wouldn't be in Alcoholics Anonymous. Haven't you tried enough methods before you came to Alcoholics Anonymous? So there is something beyond you that has guided you into Alcoholics Anonymous. And that has brought about a profound personality change for you to listen to what Alcoholics Anonymous has to tell you. And our spiritual experiences are of the educational variety. So every time you have a new feeling, it's a new experience. So, your spiritual experience keeps firing again and again and again. And unless you work the program, you wouldn't know the difference. And that's why they say, if you make a gratitude list of where you are, you will know what this profound personality change, because it's through this profound personality change only that you can see the change that is happening in you. So it all starts with the divine intervention. As you progress in your journey in sobriety, you'll encounter more of these spiritual experiences, varieties of spiritual experiences. And we have that in the back of our book, what a spiritual experience is all about. And the big book, the 4th edition, it is there right now, the back page, it is. It's appendix 2, page 567, The term spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself amongst us in many different forms. So it starts there, the manifestation of what you call personality change that is happening in you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it does.
Thank you, Sandy. Yes, Hiren, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hiren. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
my question is, in the 12 and 12, step 4, it says misguided moral inventory can result in guilt, grandiosity, or blaming others. So my question is, what is the misguided moral inventory, or which is the misguided moral inventory?
First, my experience, and thank you for this question. My experience to this is, any inexperienced person who has not done a 4th step or who has not worked the 12-step program. That is why we mention, unless you have minimum of 1 year of sobriety and you work the 12 steps, please don't try to sponsor anyone. Or you can, even if you sponsor them on step 1, 2, and 3. Because, untreated alcoholism can, it's the manifestation of that in the lives of the person who is practicing it. It's not very nice. And plus, that person has not experienced life. So he or she obviously cannot transmit something they don't have. So if you don't have proper recovery, it's always misguided instincts that they will share with, So you have to be careful. You have to be very, very careful. Like I shared earlier, it is your life. We sometimes bark up the wrong tree, and sometimes we get hurt with that. There are a lot of people whose sponsors have exploited or done things that they don't. I know personally of so many people who have gone back to drinking because of that. So we have to be, I mean, if they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So if I don't play God, God will put that person when I'm ready into my life who can guide me through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hope that answers your question, Hiren.
If I could come in for a second, Hiren, here, it also means that if you're doing this misguided, means doing it with your ego intact here, unless your ego has been smashed, and you won't know humility. So when you do it with your ego, it's always blaming somebody else for everything that's happened to me because I'm perfect. So that's what misguided probably means. Ego, they call it ego maniacal here in the 12th step. Also, don't forget that word here. Thank you. SK?
Hi everybody, I'm SK, recovering alcoholic. I do have a question. I relapsed after 20 years. Am I to start my fourth step right from my child? From where should I start my fourth step?
It depends on how you want to do it. It's most of us have that all or nothing attitude, or you want to work on what troubles you right now and then go on to doing your fourth step from the beginning. It's advisable to do it from the beginning of when you started reasoning out, from the age of reasoning when you started. It is recommended. But then if there are certain things that's troubling you right at this moment, you can do those and get rid of those and then move on to the others. But you have to do an inventory which encompasses the whole thing, because the sickness, long before you even knew it, you were sick. So before I stopped drinking, I knew I had a problem. So why did those problems, like I shared, what come into my life? I don't have an answer. But when I see it on paper, I realize that most of it didn't happen because I willed it to happen. It had to happen that way. So that is coming terms to myself. Today I don't regret. I shall not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. I don't do that. I don't regret the past because I have dealt with most of it. The other day, I had a close call. I thought that is curtains from me. I had a vertigo attack, and the first time I'm having it, I sweat and I couldn't sleep on either side. The world went spinning, and I sweat and I stopped. And I couldn't drink water. I started puking, and then I've never experienced this before. I thought, finished. This is curtains for me. And one question that came to my mind was, do you have any regrets? And that was blank. I don't have any regrets. I lived life to its fullest, and this is as best as it gets. So, to reach that, I felt gratified, that after all, in my life, which I thought I had done nothing good, I've done something right. So yeah, addressing your issue is getting to know yourself. How well do you want to know yourself is what the question that you need to ask yourself. Because after all, it is you are living with, not with anybody else. And how much of you do you want to partition and keep on one side and you see only one side of your life? That again is a question you need to ask yourself.
I have a memory loss and retention power. Will it be a bothering factor?
We all have memory losses. That's why they say whenever you remember something, write it on paper and keep it. So you can deal with it. All of us. I sometimes open the fridge and I start staring to the fridge. I was actually looking for my underwears. That's not in the fridge. It's in the cupboard. So we all have that. With age, these sort of things do happen. And we need to accept those things gracefully.
Like forgetting where you hit the halwa? Also, Philip, for a vertigo attack, stop sleeping with a pillow under your neck. It'll go. It becomes much. It really responds much better. Try that. Yes, Rahul.
Hi everyone, Rahul Alcoholic. Thank you, Philip, for your workshop. And I actually have two questions. The first question is if I am having a starting problem because of fear or not trusting my sponsor or other members, does that mean I'm essentially running my life on self-will and not doing the fourth step? And my second question is, what can folks like you, recovered alcoholics, do to make, to share with newcomers that the fourth step is not such a bad thing? And once we do it, absolute miracles and a lot of the weight that was on our shoulders gets relieved. Thank you.
Yeah. What was your first question again, Rahul?
For people that are having issues starting the fourth step because of fear or not trusting their sponsor, does that essentially mean they are still running their life on self-will and trying to do this program their own way? And the next question is, what can recovered people like you do for newcomers to portray that the fourth step is not as bad as everyone says it is? And once we do it, that weight on our shoulders gets lifted to a significant degree. Thanks.
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is trying to tell the newcomer that it's nothing to be scared of. You need to do it. If I have to have a new way of life, something has to go when you have to replace it with something else. So when your character defects or whatever you think you have has to move out, it has to be replaced. And unless you do your fourth step, you can't do it. Now, the second question you asked, it depends. In different people have different attitude towards this, and different people have different ways of receiving things. So not everyone can do their fourth step in the first month, second month, or third month. Some take time. I've known people who have done it after ages. But it does not mean you can condone them. It is their state of mind that makes them do whatever they are doing. Some people are receptive, some people are not. So it again depends on how we look at it. I can't force anyone to do anything. I can take a horse to the water, but I cannot make it drink. Now this fourth step, there is no complete fourth step. You can't do it. But if I can get someone started on it, that's the least I can do for them. That's the way I look at it. So the first thing is I need to brief them of what the fourth step is, the advantages of a fourth step, because it's totally contrary to their way of life and thinking. So they have to come out of it. So it's a transition from one state of understanding to another. Some are beaten up so badly that they may be willing to do it at the same time. Some high bottoms come in a little later. They say, no, I'm not so bad. I'll do it later, until they get whacked a little more and then come and do it. So, this is again what we talked about, Sandeep. It's a divine intervention. I take it, it's just God's will. When my will matches, or when God's will matches my will, things start happening. But until then, I resist, I fight. And, things don't go the way I want it to go, and I blame God for it. So, when my will, pain is the touchstone to emotional sobriety. So, yeah, I guess that's my answer to it.
Thank you.
Page 24, Rahul, of the 12 and 12 actually explains that when they talk about that, unless you have done the first, second, and third step to the utmost of your ability, you won't be able to take the rest of the fourth step of the 8 steps. They're far too difficult. So acceptance is the key here. I hope that's also helps, Rahul. Can we go on to Ajit? Yes, Ajit.
Thank you.
Please. Yes, Ajit.
Good evening, my brothers and sisters. I'm Ajit, alcoholic. My one simple question to my elder brother, Philip J. I am in the program from last 16, 17 months in sober, and program for last 22 months. But I am not doing my program from the sponsor, who is forcing me to do it. Is there any limitation to do urgency, or which I am not ready to go ahead of my steps? I am not accessible to him distance, and I am not having the time to meet him. I am having some other things for that cause I am been away from him. But is there any limitation to do it in within the particular time limit or something to step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or any duration for that? That is the only my simple question.
Number one, the steps are in an order where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, a lot of people do step 1 and step 12 and are sober. Now you have to find what is blocking you from doing your steps. Is it because you don't like authority? Is it because you don't like your sponsor telling you? We don't like authority. That's a problem most of us have. And if you're not willing to do it, it's only your pain that will change you to do it. If that means you like the life that you're having right now. You're happy with what you're or where you are. So it's only it's only change that is constant. And if you don't change, the book says we perish. So change we must or we perish. So if you don't like change, well, then you're holding on to something that is resisting that change. So you have to find out, you have to find out what is the fear that is blocking you from moving forward. It's some fear that is blocking you from moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, friends. Sukhdev, alcoholic. Mr. Philip, my question is, whenever I feel uneasy, I feel anxious, so I take this anti-anesthetic, tablets which give me sleep. This I've been doing since for last 1 month. So I had read somewhere, I think, sober living, that we are not supposed to take any substance at all. So, no, what do you feel like? What's your answer?
See, we have very addictive personalities, very habit forming, especially these sort of pills and other things are habit forming. I'm not a doctor, so I can't recommend you on that. But I'll tell you, I was a victim of this diazepams, and getting rid of it was even more difficult than stopping drinking. The withdrawal symptoms of diazepam is very, very fatal. So I don't know. It's on doctors because it's very habit forming.
Yeah.
And most of our sickness is psychosomatic. When you say psychosomasis, it's in the mind. 85-90% of our sickness is in the mind. It's only 2 or 3% that is real. That is why if you feel sick and you go and see a doctor, you are half okay. And even if the doctor gives you some chalk pills, the next day you're fine. So your body heals itself. So if you have the right perspective, yes. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you what is right or wrong. But this is what I went through. It was so difficult for me to come out of it.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, Philip, that Bill W. said, what's the difference? A pill or a drink is the same. And we don't stick to the doctor said you can take half a tablet. Well, very soon it's not half a tablet, it's half a pack here. Because that's what we are basically. We need the extra kick, the crutch to lean on. Sandeep, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Hemant sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I'm grateful to God to be sober today. That was an awesome share, Philip sir. It was very valuable for me. Sir, my question is on people pleasing. Sir, I know I am a people pleaser, but right now I am on the path of recovery. I am aware of it, that whenever circumstances arise where I am trying to please people, I'm trying to avoid it. But on the contrary, for some time, say for half an hour or so, or 15 minutes or so, my mind goes on a turmoil, sir. I get irritated when I don't please people. I'll just narrate, I will just quote it with one example, sir, what exactly I'm facing. For example, if some patient comes to me and while going, they ask me for my number. I say them that, sir, I can't give my number because it's my personal number. I can't give it. Earlier, I used to please them and give it straightforward. And they would call me anytime and disturb me like that. So now I'm avoiding it, but I feel confused and irritated for a while. But I'm aware of it, that this is my flaw. So how would I handle such a situation, sir? Thank you.
Sandeep, this is a learning process. We are in a, AA is a school for scoundrels. And we've all thrown kites without strings. You're here to learn something, and you're learning to draw your boundaries. What I would recommend is, be the way. Today for you, the biggest thing is to stay sober. Your recovery is more important than people pleasing. It's a full-time job staying sober. So, it's your call what you want to do with your life. You're learning how to draw boundaries, and you're doing nothing wrong there. See. So your first priority is sobriety, and you have to do what it takes to stay sober. The first 5-6 months, 1 year, it's very, very difficult, because that is where a whole shift in your attitude and the way you look at things, the perspective of things, it's changing. And that will cause a lot of irritation and restlessness and discomfort, because there is change involved in all this. So, that's my personal advice. You take care of staying sober. Don't get upset over trivial things. If you don't like something, be honest enough to say, I don't like it, or I can't do it. That's about it. Because if you are sober, you have everything. If you don't have sobriety, you have nothing. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, sir.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Before we come to Vijay, Sudhanshu has a question in the chat. Sudhanshu, why don't you ask your conjugated question yourself here, instead of me having to explain it? The faster. Sudhanshu, please.
What's your question, Sudhanshu? All right, Vijay.
We'll take Vijay first and then come back. Maybe Sudhanshu will ask the question. Yes, Vijay, please come ahead. Unmute yourself, Vijay.
Yeah, I know crosstalk is not allowed, but I'll just give you one snippet that will help Sandeep, Dr. Sandeep. One snippet. My mother, she died last year, and she was an obstetrician gynecologist. And it'll help Sandeep a lot. And there was a medical procedure, tiny medical procedure, and at 10:30 in the morning. And this anesthesiologist was working way beyond his, physician thyself, right? He was working way beyond, and he just collapsed at 44 of a heart attack. Do you know what that lady asked my mother? What about me? When will my thing? Patients are so selfish in the medical profession. Sandeep, if you are even the intervention cardiologist, if you stop practicing for 1 year, you'll be forgotten. Patients don't care a damn. It's just, sorry to say, not all, I'll never generalize all, but some. They're so about themselves. So you, as Philip said, you have to put yourself first. You have to put yourself.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hemant, I will read.
Yes, Arun, please go ahead.
Is it that, this is Sitanshu's question, is it that the faster we do the steps, the faster we recover?
It depends on your maturity of how well you understand yourself. You don't have to be a graduate to know what a graduate does if you've been through life on that. So it's all about maturity, emotional maturity. Just running through the program will not guarantee you better life. You'll only know about it, but understanding yourself is the core of all this.
Thank you, Philip. Is there anybody else who's got any questions? Because we are on time. If you have, please go ahead. Otherwise, we'll close the meeting, guys. So, anybody else would like to ask anything? We are going to continue with step 4 tomorrow too. More than welcome. Please do join us. We will.
There's just come up. There's got something to
Yes,
ask.
yes, please.
Yes, Philip, thank you. Philip, my question is, why does fear always follow a resentment? Or the other way around?
Fear following a resentment. A resentment is the fear that somebody is going to take something you would have or you don't have. It could be your ego, it could be your self-respect, it could be your pride, hurting your pride. That is the fear that, you know, someone is going to come in the way and take it from you. So that fear is always there, whether it's in front or back, it's the same thing, isn't it? The fear of losing.
I find that mostly, majority of the time, that there is always, with the resentment, there is a fear.
See, most of these things come out of comparisons, no? That's what I said. The fear is either you don't match up to that person, you know, the way you think it should. So that is the fear, I don't match up. Or, you know, I don't have what they have. So, you know, you fear that when they ask you a question, that they're going to ask you something that you don't have. So that is the fear that is going to block you.
The sum of your insecurities is equal to the sum of your resentments.
Yeah. The sum of
anybody else has got any questions? All right, then I think we'll end.
Self-worth, self-esteem, self-respect.
Self of your insecurities.